Hello, welcome back to the Urban Scholars channel. Today we're going to be talking about the fourth frame. Clean up any past memories that are not consistent with what you want. Now, what does it mean to clean up a past memory that's not consistent with what you want? First, you must know what you want. You must have your values and your goals in order, right? And then, once you start looking at what it is you want, you have to kind of take a look back at what could possibly stand in the way of interfering with you achieving those goals or those values, right? Many times people set goals, they write goals, and they try to set up a plan to accomplish the goals, and it becomes very difficult for them to do. It's like trying to get over a wall, and you haven't figured out the exact system to get over this particular wall. You keep falling down. And a lot of times we fall down because we have things that we're holding on to in our mind and in our heart from our past. And some of those things cause us trauma. They affect our relationships. They affect our simple belief in ourselves. It could have been a bad marriage. It could have been you were bullied as a child. It could have been anything, right? But what's important is to identify it, right? And second is once you identify it, then you have to find a way to get rid of it, to remove it from your timeline. One of the things that most people don't understand is, as humans, we have a built-in timeline. And within a timeline, right, you can look back at it and you can look forward in your timeline. Timeline is basically looking back at your life. And in everybody's timelines, there were significant events that occurred, right, that helped shape us into becoming who we are today. Now, if it's one thing to remember what's in our timeline behind us, right? But if we don't understand how it impacted us and shaped our minds and our thinking and made us who we are today, then how can we continue to move forward? Or how can one move forward, period? Right? It's a science to addressing that. So one of the things that we teach in the Blueprint for Success is something that's been very important, to go back to those negative memories, those negative moments, right? And kind of replay those moments in your head about what really occurred, and then start asking yourself questions about what does it represent to you? Like, what does it really mean now? And is this the reason why I can't accomplish this particular goal? Or is this the reason why I did such and such? Or is this the reason why I keep getting into toxic relationships, or I can't maintain positive friendships? Like, it could have been anything. What's important is you identify the past memory, right, that's holding you back. And one of the things that you have to do in order to kind of get rid of that memory, you got to kind of reverse it in your head. And the timeline that's built in us is interesting, because everything that happened to you in your past is still in your timeline. But your brain doesn't process everything that occurred to you. There's just certain significant events that occurred that stand out in your life. And those are the ones that you have to identify and address, right? So when you address it, how do you address that? Say you got punched in the face in 5th grade, and from that point on, you felt like you need to change who you were, you needed to defend yourself, or you needed to become the person that was the more aggressive person to avoid the bullies from coming after you. And maybe after that, you went around beating up on other people and becoming very defensive in life. So you have to go back to that moment, not relive it, just go back to the moment, right? And you have to actually go in that moment and recall what was going on that day. What was the weather like? What was the conditions of your environment? Was it a bad place? Is it something that represents something bad for you? If it was, right, you need to identify that. And then what you need to do is change that moment in your mind. You need to replace it with some good memories and some positive memories. So say if it was raining that day, create a sunny, happy memory, right? Because what's important is you being able to move past it. You can't change what already occurred to you, but you have to own it, right? And if you're unable to go back to these moments, right? And I advise you to do this with someone who understands this process, because it's a very delicate process, and it's where a lot of people get stuck at. So it's very important. So I'm just kind of giving you like a fast version of what it really looks like and what it sounds like. You have to go back to that moment and make it a good moment. You know, maybe it was raining that day, but maybe you can say, oh, you know what, it was sunny outside, right? Then you can also say, well, what was I wearing that day? Maybe I was wearing like a really nice outfit, like my favorite shirt, right? And those things, right, automatically your mind starts to put that in that information in that spot, right? And what you're doing is reversing what really occurred, right? You're kind of changing it. You're kind of like, what's the word? You're going in. You're kind of like taking what was there and replacing with something that is better. That is very important. And this little skill here is important in your progress and trying to accomplish things in life. Because many people, 30, 40, it doesn't matter how old you are, you just get stuck in their past. And those pasts cause them to behave a certain way. So it's very important that we understand what significant events occurred in our timeline, right? And how we need to go back to those moments, right? And replace them with better moments and create a better picture, a better view of what actually occurred and change it. You know, it could be anything. And this is something that you do, right, with someone who understands how to help you go back, right, and recreate what you want in your timeline. And the timeline is important, and this is what we teach in the Blueprint for Success, because just like you can think back in your timeline, you can also program forward, right? So whatever you want to occur in your future, whether it's in an hour, a day, 30 days, a year, 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, you can put that in your future timeline. And that's one of the secrets to creating the future that you want. You put in your timeline what you want. And you can do that in your future timeline. You can go back in your timeline and replace bad memories with good memories. It's very important to understand this skill. This is one of the most crucial parts in setting goals and values and going after them and knowing how to go about overcoming certain obstacles that occurred in your life that may have caused you or someone you know some trauma. So that is very important to understand in terms of how to clean up any past memory that's not consistent with what you want. Thank you. This is the Urban Scholars Channel, and you have a great day.